Okay, last week we started Muktza. I apologize for my voice. Last week we learned the 3 reasons for Muktza. One is you might come to carry, or if the Chachamim said Shabbos is different, you don't walk on Shabbos like you don't talk on Shabbos like you do during the week, how much more so touching, moving things should be different. And then the 3rd reason for Muktza is because there are people that don't work a whole week. So for them, how do they celebrate Shabbos? So Chachamim said that certain things you can't move. And like we said last week, Muktza, you're allowed to touch, you're not allowed to move Muktza. Okay? Muktza is rabbinic. By the way, it's not biblical, it's rabbinic. And there were stages of Muktza, not really relevant in the halacha today, but there was a time the Jews were very, very lax in keeping Shabbos. So Nehemiah, the time of the beginning of the second base of English, made a lot of decrees, made everything Muktza basically. Except cutlery and food things, everything was Muktza. And then they kept easing up on it because people started keeping more careful. Okay? So right now we're talking about something which is called Keli Shmalachtu Laheter, a vessel whose primary use is for something permissible. Therefore, it's not Muktza at all, even though just for no reason you should move it, but if you have any reason, you're allowed to move it. And we started giving up examples. For instance, we said, we're talking about games, okay? Games that are normally buying and selling, like Monopoly, even though it's fake. Most people say you cannot play Monopoly on Shabbos. Scrabble, because it's a game you keep score, you're going to write, you can't play Scrabble on Shabbos. Even when we discussed last week the deluxe Scrabble, where there's grooves and the letters are fit in tightly, that's even a bigger problem of writing. That itself is considered writing. Okay, wind-up toys, we said, are not Muktza, but you can't wind them up. Because why aren't they Muktza? Because you can play with them without winding up. So it's really a toy. You can still play with it.
But can you wind it up?
No. Not on Shabbos. Okay, we said balls, bats, gloves, all that are not really Muktza on Shabbos because you're allowed, according to most opinions, you're allowed to play with them on Shabbos. Okay, now.
A skateboard.
Huh?
A skateboard?
We'll learn that you can't do it in the street. It's not in the spirit of Shabbos, even if there's a native. A lot of things were forbidden because it's just not like saying it is Shabbosdik. It's just not in the spirit of Shabbos.
Many people ride scooters all over the city.
And they're riding bikes also, and they're riding their yeah, but really,
One less, like, one worse than the other?
well, bikes are worse because there's a chain that might fall off, you might fix it. Chachamim, a lot of things on Shabbos said you're not allowed to do certain things because they might break and you'll come to fix it. For instance, we mentioned last time, riding a horse on Shabbos is rabbinically forbidden. Why? You might rip off a branch to use as a whip. You're not allowed to swim in an ocean on Shabbos because you might build a raft.
You might what?
Build a raft. You're not allowed to play Scrabble because you might come to write.
So you could go in a swimming pool?
No, that's other reasons involved.
Right.
No, I'm saying there's a lot of each of the Chum said you can't do it because you might come to do something worse. And one of the reasons of Muktza, by the way, we learned, is that you shouldn't come to do something which is forbidden. So therefore there's restraining on what you can move around, because then you're not going to come to do worse things. Okay, marbles are not Muktza. Brooms, now, anything that could break, basically, that you might forget and fix it, you can't use on Shabbos. Now, the old-time brooms, they were made with the straw, and they would fall out and you'd put it back in. So those brooms were not allowed to be used on Shabbos. But the ones whose the bristles don't break, like today's
The plastic ones?
plastic, nylon, synthetic, only indoors, because outdoors you can't sweep the lawn or the dirt. But inside a house you'd be allowed to sweep, not tile, not carpet, not carpet.
Why would you sweep carpet?
Even outside of that,
Like if you had your
Not carpet, no.
Yeah, like if you
had challah crumbs.
What is the reason
Oh, you would sweep your
For what?
not being
Yeah,
able to
people
sweep in your backyard?
Their
Like say you have a patio
Not
right
carpet.
next to your house and you.
Grass or
No,
cement?
no, on the wood.
No, wood you could,
Could you, like,
not
sweep your
on
patio?
earth, not on
Not on
earth,
earth.
Oh, I see.
Well,
That's
not dirt?
because,
Just
right,
like you're
because that, you'll come to plow to make a hole in the ground.
But a patio concrete is fine.
Right. Okay. Now, aerosol sprays, again, we learned last time, if you're allowed to use it, it's not muksa. If you're not allowed to use it, it's muksa. And we didn't get to the second category yet. That's called a vessel whose primary use is for something forbidden. We'll get to that soon. For instance, air freshener in a room.
Yeah.
Okay, let's discuss about this first. According to all opinions, you cannot spray garments to create a good smell. That's according to all opinions. On Shabbos, you cannot spray garments to create a smell in the garment because you're creating a new thing, a smell that didn't exist before in the garment.
How about on your hand?
1 second. On the body or in the air, many people permit it. There are people that forbid it.
So you can't spray perfume on yourself with clothing.
Not with clothes.
Now,
maybe
you
on
could-
your body. Some people
Well,
commit.
some people say no, but lapel that everybody's lenient about perfume on the body. By the way, that's if you want to create a good smell. To remove a foul smell, like in a bathroom you spray the Lysol or whatever it is, to take away a bad smell, that's for sure allowed. According to everybody, because you're not doing it to create a good smell, you're just doing it to remove a bad smell. So that would be allowed. So therefore, deodorant sprays, mouthwash sprays, perfume sprays, hair sprays, all these things, because they technically could be used on Shabbos, so automatically not muksa.
So you can spray hairspray on your
No,
hair?
no. Hairspray,
Why would you use it within a hair?
you can't spray a shaitel. Whether you can do it on the hair is another issue
You
completely.
can do it on
But
the
wait,
shape.
it can't.
Not, cannot do it on the
Oh,
shaitel.
you can't spray and then just hot touch it again the rest of the day?
No, no.
Can't even like comb.
You can
really
spray your
can't
own
even
hair, but
comb
not the
your
shadle?
Because it's like
The hair is it's not so
the
simple
same-
either.
the same
Because
rule
if you're
about
building
real
it,
hair, you can't do.
if you're building, the purpose of hairspray is to keep it in this shape that you put it in.
Yeah.
So that's called constructing on Shabbos. You create constructing a new shape in your hair, or shaitel, or whatever it is. That's the problem with it. Now, insect repellents.
Insect. That's allowed, right?
Now, insect repellents you're allowed to do because you're not killing anything. You're just stopping them from coming. You can't spray, let's say there's a bunch of ants or cockroaches, you're not allowed to spray them on Shabbos because you're killing them.
We wouldn't want to do that.
And that's the malacha of shchita, of slaughtering on Shabbos, which is forbidden. But, and therefore, because you can't spray the one that actually kill insects, so therefore it's muktza, because you're not allowed to use it. And we'll learn what you're allowed to move it for, and whatever. Perfumes, you're allowed to do. Furniture, no matter how big it is not muktza. Artificial plants, they're not muktza. Are not muktza. Artificial or cut flowers are also not muktza. No, flowers not. It's not growing anymore. But a plant that's still growing, even if it's in a
Pot.
what?
In a pot.
In a pot, yeah. Is muktzah. It's muktzah because
You can't move a living.
no, because you might cut it, and then you're cutting off something from a living thing, which is harvesting. But other flowers are not muktzah. Somebody brings you flowers on Shabbos. You can't put it into water on Shabbos, unless it was in the water before. But it's not muktzah. You can move it wherever you want. Artificial plants are also not muktzah, but a real live plant is a muktzah. Now, safety pins are considered a vessel that you're allowed to do because you could use safety pins on Shabbos.
For the baby's diapers.
They be baby diapers
For
or
your clothes? Or
yeah,
whatever.
even it's not considered sewing, by the way. By the way, there's a whole issue with that. when you put in a safety pin, normally you put it in and out to hold it well.
Yeah.
Just put in one side, one time per side, it's not going to hold well. There are opinions in Allah that say you can't use a safety pin if you're going to put it in and out.
Oh, really?
But it seems that we hold that you could.
Oh.
But a safety pin, because technically you can use it in a permissible way. According to all opinions, you can make one, you could put it through once, and each side is sufficient out of. Toothpicks are not muktza. Magnets, according to most opinions, magnets are not muktza. Now you have to be careful. Sometimes the kids have these sketches that
yeah.
you with magnets you can draw pictures or
Magnets
make.
No, the
Etch-a-sketch.
Etch-a-sketch. That you can't do.
Etch-a-sketch.
You can't do the etch-a-sketch.
It's like
Remember,
writing.
it's like
That's
all the
creative.
black,
It's writing on Shabbos.
Yeah.
the black graphite at the
Yeah, the
bottom,
red
and you
one.
move it with the pen.
By the way, it's rabbinic writing because it's not permanent. If
I thought you
the
said
race,
once magnetized were Muktza.
no, only if it's causing writing or things like that.
Oh, okay.
A Shabbos blech. Okay, the.
You can move those?
Well, yeah, if you want it, let's say you want to take it off on Shabbos. It's not muktzah anymore because it was used for a permissible thing
Okay.
to put the food on. So
Okay.
that's not muktzah. Okay, the next definition, which is more very practical, in fact, is kelim shemalachtai le'isser, meaning vessels whose primary use is for something forbidden. And we're going to go through a lot of different things because some things it's not so, not so simple. Now, that is muktza, but they can be moved for two reasons. If you need the place where it's on, or you want to do something permissible with it. For instance, a pen is a vessel whose primary use is to write, which is forbidden on Shabbos. Therefore, this pen is muktza. Now, what happens if somebody left a pen on the dining room table and I need the space, I'm having guests, I need to set the table. I'm allowed to pick it up, move it wherever I want, and put it down. No, this can be moved
Because you
regularly.
need the space.
Or if I want to use the pen as a marker,
Okay. Not its normal use.
right, but a permissible use. I'll give you another example. Well, we're going to go through all these things. So, you're allowed to move it if you need the place, or if you want to do something permissible with it. Now, if you don't need the place, I'll give you an example. Somebody left it on this end of the table, and there's only two people, so you're going to be sitting over there, and you don't need this place, then you can't move it. Because you're not moving it because you need the place. You don't need the place. You don't need the place, it's not considered something that you'd be allowed to move. Okay? Now, let's discuss the various scenarios.
Warm over here, Donna.
By the way, what happens if I left the pen outside in my backyard? Or I left something muktza, whatever, the balloons in the cases. And I'm afraid it's going to get stolen, or it's raining, it might get ruined. I cannot move it.
Or the dog would eat it.
Wait, if you
No,
leave what in the
that's
rain?
not. Let's say I left out, and only this muktzah, by the way. The other muktzahs you can't move for any reason. What's the case? The case is I left my pen in the backyard. Okay. I don't want it to get stolen, or it's going to rain. It's going to ruin my pen. So I'm not allowed to bring it in.
Just put a piece of plastic over it.
That's what I was
You
wondering.
could put something over it that you could do.
Yeah.
It's not so simple, but that you could do. So halacha is not so simple, you could do it. But you cannot bring it in because that's not called for the need of the place or to use something permissible with the object. Now, let's say you could cheat with this a little bit. What happens, they say, you know what, I wanted to use it as a bookmark.
Oh, there you go.
So because you created a permissible use, then we learned to use it for permissible use to be allowed. We're going to see a lot of, or what happens if it's in the sun, and you don't want to get ruined in the sun, you want to move it away from the sun. You can't do that. Okay? Okay. Now, Okay, let's get into the scenarios. Okay. Pots that you cook in. This is a very interesting case. Just think about it. A pot is made to cook.
Right,
Cooking is not allowed on Shabbos.
right.
The primary use of this pot is therefore for something forbidden. The plates that you eat from, that's something only permissible. The pots that you cook in are really made for something forbidden. That's the purpose of the pot. Now, why can I take a pot of soup and bring it to the table? Because I'm doing something permissible with it. Right? For practical purposes, I'm bringing it to the table because I want to serve from it, so that I'm allowed to do it. But what happens if I have a pot that I left outside and it might get stolen or ruined? I cannot bring it in unless if I create a need for it, a purpose for it. Otherwise, it'd be forbidden. Now,
What if you want to get a pot out that you're gonna do something with some like a strainer or
yeah,
something?
can't
You're
use
gonna
a strainer on Shabbos.
But you're
Okay.
gonna put like fruit in a strainer, just as a bowl. And to get to that, you have to move a pot.
So again, you need the place where the pot is on. I need the place to get to something behind this. I need this place to be emptied that I can take out the back thing. So then you would be allowed. But we'll learn something which is, and I'm jumping the gun, but something which is real muktza, which is not a vessel, just total muktza, you can't move it.
Like frozen meat to get behind,
Raw frozen meat.
only raw.
Well, you could, if it's cooked, you could defrost it. Technically edible.
Are we talking now that it's
Raw frozen
where
meat, you
is
put
that
it
in the
move
movie?
to get to
Okay.
something else.
Let's say,
Yeah, if you have
I'll give you a very important, very, very crucial, important scenario.
Okay.
You need to get to the ice cream. Very important.
That is important.
Very important. Now, before Shabbos, he didn't think too much. So now, this ice cream is in the back of the freezer,
Yeah.
and in front of it you have raw fish, raw meat, or unedible things that
Right.
even defrosting it won't be usable.
Right.
So therefore, I want to move out the frozen meat to get to the ice cream. I'm not allowed to. I can ask
Not
Godoy
even
to do,
with
but
the
I can't do it.
shinui.
Huh?
Not even with the chenille.
You could do it with a shinai. Then what are you going to do? Knock it down and then?
Better to frost
Knock it in
it.
the back.
You can do it with
You
them.
have
Muktza,
to have
you
a
can-
special shelf for the ice cream.
In other words, you can
Yeah,
you can
definitely.
kick muktza, something which is muktza. You can kick because it's
Frozen
not.
meat is muktzah because
What?
Frozen meat is muktzah because you would cook it. What if you would eat it raw?
Okay, so in a time when people would eat raw meat, then it wouldn't be muktza. Today, generally speaking, they're starting now to
Like
eat.
raw fish if you were to make
That's
sushi with
right.
it.
Same thing, by the way. Raw fish. Oh, this is not Kabbalah. If people eat raw fish, then raw fish wouldn't be muktza. If people eat raw meat, it wouldn't be muktza. But now, as of now, you can't say people eat raw meat. They
What
don't
if you
eat raw
give raw
meat.
meat to your dog?
And it's not going to be, and I'm saying,
Let's get over it.
no, Halacha says, by the way, if it's meat, that meat during the week I feed to my dog, raw, then it's not muktza. But if I have a rib steak, you're not planning to feed it to the dog necessarily. Maybe in Beverly Hills they do. But you wouldn't, so then you wouldn't be allowed to move it.
But
to
the
get-
fish you could.
What?
The fish you could.
If it's a fish that people eat raw.
What if it's vegetables, frozen vegetables?
Frozen vegetables, basically, you could defrost and eat, so that's not going to be a problem.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'll give you another example. Sewing needles. Yeah? Sewing needles are basically made to sew. So they're muktza. But what happens if I want to take out a splinter, let's say. And the splinter is not very deep inside. And therefore, I would be allowed to take out the splinter because it's not for sure going to bleed. But I need a needle. So I can't sterilize the needle. That I can't do on Shabbos. But then I'll be able to take a needle.
Put alcohol in it.
Well, yeah, that you can do, yeah. Not sterilize it with fire, the good old-fashioned way.
Alcohol is cold
Only if
sterilization.
it's little, right?
Huh?
Cold sterilization.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. I'm from the older generation. So then I would be allowed to take the needle to take out a splinter if it's not for sure going to bleed. Okay, if it's for sure going to bleed, I wouldn't be allowed to. So all these things, it's kelish
You
malach
had
to
a bottle
this.
opener in the same drawer as you had a little sewing kit. You had to make sure you don't move the sewing kit to get the bottle opener.
No, again, then you need the place. So you're moving the sewing kit because you need
That
the
you
place,
can
then
do.
you would be allowed.
But not the frozen meat.
Right. Now I'll give you another example.
Why not the frozen meat but the sewing kit?
Frozen meat is worse muksa than sewing kit. We'll learn there's
Levels
different categories of
It's,
muksa.
it's levels of muksa.
Yeah, different levels of muksa, yeah. For instance, candlesticks.
Oh,
Now, if you lit them that Shabbos, they're completely muksa for the duration of Shabbos, even when the lights go out, the candles burn down, it's forbidden to move it for anything. But if they're candle holders, candlesticks that you didn't light that Shabbos, they're just, candlesticks on the table and you did use something else. Now, what's the purpose of a candlestick? To light candles, which is forbidden. So therefore, that candlestick is only muksa because it's a vessel whose primary use is for something forbidden. Correct? Therefore, if candlesticks that I did not use that Shabbos are on the table, I need the place, I can pick them up and move them away. Unless if they're very, very expensive, then you wouldn't be allowed to. It's a different category of muksa also. Muksa machmas chsor and kiss. I'll give you an example. Okay, I'm jumping around a little bit, but a hammer is made to build, construction, correct? So the hammer is a knock and nail in construction. Now construction you're not allowed to do.
Right.
A screwdriver is made to screw things in, which is also construction, which is forbidden on Shabbos. Now, therefore a hammer and a screwdriver are keli shemalach tol iser, it's forbidden usage, and therefore I can only move it if I need the place or I need to use it for something permissible.
That's correct.
So what happens if I want to crack open a coconut? Okay? So let's say during the week I take a screwdriver with a hammer and I chisel whatever it is and I bang it out. Okay, so you can do it on Shabbos. What happens if I want to crack open a walnut? Now the Rebbe says better not to eat all these nuts on Shabbos if they're in the shell. But let's say halachically, I'm allowed to crack open a walnut on Shabbos. If I don't have a nut crack, I'm going to take a hammer and use it, then I would be allowed. Okay? But I wouldn't be allowed to take an expensive camera that I won't use for anything else but taking pictures, which is forbidden on Shabbos. I'm not going to use that to crack open a walnut. Okay? So that becomes total muksa. I'll give you another example. A sheichet's knife. Yeah, it's a very, very special sharp knife, yeah? That knife is made to do shchita, which is forbidden on Shabbos, right? Nobody's going to take a sheichet's knife and cut a piece of cake with it. Nobody's going to do it. It's too precious, it's too expensive, it's just, you don't do it. So therefore, even though a sheichet's knife technically would be a vessel whose primary use is something forbidden, but in this case it would be totally forbidden because of a loss of money. A hammer, you don't care. You'll knock open a nut, you'll bring on that doesn't matter anything, right? But if you have something very expensive, okay, nobody's going to crack open a nut with their cell phone, with their iPhone. So yes, an iPhone is keli shemalach le'isa, right? It's made to talk, all the things we've been on Shabbos. But it's worse than that. It's completely muktzah. Because nobody's going to use it for anything but that because you'll break it. And it costs a few bucks. You're not going to do it.
Unless you're on a desert island and you had to do something, right?
Then to save a life, you could do it.
Save a life, yeah. If you leave it outside on the patio
Gotta
table
leave it there.
and it rains, you have to leave it there.
You
even
can
though
cover
it's- You can cover it.
But you can't take it in.
Can you take a splinter out with tweezers?
Yeah, if it won't bleed. I mean, if it's for sure going to bleed, you're not.
tweezers.
If it's not for sure going to bleed, then you could do it. Okay, I'll give you another example. Rulers Okay? Measuring cups.
It's very simple.
Now, the primary use of a ruler is to measure.
Right?
What happens if I want to hit somebody with it? So I'm using it for permissible usage. So then a ruler and the measuring cups, it's interesting. You have in the kitchen measuring cups. Now, on Shabbos, what is the purpose of that cup? To measure. Okay, most people don't drink from those cups. Okay, it's made to measure. Measuring is forbidden on Shabbos. Therefore, a measuring cup is what's called keli shemalachto l'isser. It's forbidden usage. Therefore, I can't use it to measure. But what happens if I want to take a drink, I pour water into the measuring cup to drink? I'm not measuring, I just want it to use as a cup.
Right.
So then I would be allowed to do it because it's something I'm using it for permissible usage. That's called Seder Gufay. I'm doing it, I'm using it for that particular thing which is allowed on Shabbos. Same thing, scales. You're not allowed to use a scale, you can't measure on Shabbos. But for mitzvahs, you can measure. Let's see, you want to know if a matzah is the right amount you need to eat on Pesach? You can measure on mitzvahs, you can measure on Shabbos and Yom Tov.
Not a digital.
Now, during Shabbos,
I realize
during
that.
Shabbos and Yom Tov?
Yeah, not digital, I'm saying these...
Yeah, the ones that have
little
the
ones.
The case of the Gemara is if you want to measure a mikveh, make sure the mikveh is still in proper amount of water, or you want to know how much matzah you need to eat, Pesach, right? So you can weigh it on Yom Tov for Shabbos.
So Seder is on Friday night.
Well, it's best to do it before Shabbos. But say if you
wanted
didn't,
to measure how much
you weigh.
zonas, crackers, is a
If you're
proper
doing it for
bracha.
the sake of a bracha, yes, then you'd be allowed to.
On Shabbos.
But to know how much you weigh, even not a digital scale, even though, first of all, you're not allowed to, because you're not allowed to get sad on Shabbos.
Holding the cracker.
You're not allowed to get sad on Shabbos. That's why.
Oh, very good idea.
You're not allowed to be sad on Shabbos.
So how can you hit somebody with a ruler on Shabbos if you can't be
It
sad
depends
on
who you want to
Shabbos?
hit.
But you're gonna make them sad on Shabbos.
Oh, no, it'll make you happy.
There's no rules about hitting people on Shabbos.
Yeah, you're not allowed to hit people a whole week.
But if you're willing to get something or need something too, reach in there and get it. It's out of your reach.
Now, what happens, I'll give you an example. What happens if you want to use a ruler as a door stopper?
Oh, that's what I do.
Yeah,
Or,
it's like a ship.
or you want to use a scale, right? Not a digital. Digital, you touch it, it goes on, it's a problem.
Yeah,
Well, let's say you want to put a scale to keep the door open.
Okay.
So then you're using it for permissible usage, and you'd be allowed to do it. Why is it Muktza? Because it's a vessel made primarily for things which are forbidden to do, and therefore you'd be allowed to do it. By the way, it's an interesting thing before we go, and we'll stop and go to Talia. Raw meat on Yom Tif is not Muktza, because you can cook.
You can cook it.
Right, so it's Shabbos you can't cook, so it's Muktza, but raw meat and Yom Tov wouldn't be Muktza. Okay,
Have
let's...
4 quick halachas. One, filtered water from your sink.
Place it right in front.
Are you allowed
Not
to...
allowed?
If it's not electric,
Because it's separating.
no, you're not separating.
You're not separating. So filtered water is fine.
Definitely not allowed.
No,
What?
someone told me
It's
that
already
filtered
hot.
water wasn't allowed because it's separating.
What happened?
No. Okay.
First of all, the din of separation of bad from good, if you can drink it as is, it's not called separation. It's not really bad. You can drink it as it is.
But it's cleaning the bad from the good. The good from
But
the
you're
bad.
taking the good anyway,
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, 2 is can you double wrap something and put it in a non-kosher oven? Triple wrap it.
Double wrap, if the oven's clean, you can do it. But we're not...
We don't like
it's not
it.
Shabbos. No, you can do it.
But you can do it?
Yeah.
Fine? Okay.
Double wrap or triple wrap?
So, so.
Okay, one sec. What page are we up to?
I didn't bring my packet. Wait, this is the,
If your oven's on low and you open it on Shabbos, are you making it
Yeah,
make
you're
more
not allowed
heat?
to.
So you cannot open
I know,
it
run.
if you left your oven on.
487 at the bottom.
You couldn't open it.
487 at the bottom, 232 on top.
can I ask you a quick question before I
What?
forget it? Because I've been meaning to ask you. You know, people take the cholent and pour hot water from the urn into it, doesn't that make it fleishy?
It could,
It could.
It could.
So they shouldn't do it.
correct.
But they have to do the first clean to the. They can take the hot water out of the.
You can't pour hot water into a cup on Shabbos and put it into the hot shower. You can't.
It's gotta be
So you have to
direct.
do directly from the urn.
Yeah.
Right,
But then the urn becomes fleishy. So you should have two urns.
right.